Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to the Climate Law and Governance Day 2024. My name is Tejas Rao, and as Senior Manager of the Center for International Sustainable Development Law, which serves as Secretariat to the Climate Law and Governance Initiative, I will be one of your moderators over the course of the day.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ananya Chowdhury, and I'm a coordinator with the Climate Law and Governance Initiative. I will also be one of your moderators over the course of the day.
Warmest of welcome from me as well. I'm Dr. Antoinette Nestor, and as one of the managers for the Climate Law and Governance Initiative, I will serve as a moderator of the 2024 Climate Law and Governance Day. It is my distinct pleasure to hand the floor to our Master of Ceremonies and Rapporteur. Maeve McDermott is my co-manager for the Climate Law and Governance Initiative in the CISDL and coordinator for the Democratizing Education for Global Sustainability and Justice program based in the University of Cambridge. Adnan Ahmed Shakroui is director at Hassan II International Center for Environmental Training and coordinator of the Mohammed VI Prize for the Climate and Sustainable Development. He also served as lead counsel for climate change with CISDL, one of the chairs of the entire Climate Law and Governance Initiative, and as a deputy chair of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law. Lara Dovartizis is Senior Legal Executive, Net Zero Lawyers Alliance, and also Special Projects Officer, Business and Human Rights of the Business and Human Rights Committee at the International Bar Association, as well as an active Associate Fellow of CISDL and Rapporteur of the Climate Law and Governance Initiative. Ayman, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. And thank you for joining us for the 2024 Climate Law and Governance Day. Speaking to you live from the Blue Zone in the beautiful city of Baku. As lead counsel for the CISDL's climate programming, it is a pleasure to return to the 7th year after year and see how far and wide the community of climate lawyers has grown. This convening power, this ability to bring together diverse perspectives and expertise has never been more crucial. As we face the mounting challenges of our climate crisis, it is through these connections, these exchanges of knowledge and experience that we forge the pathways to meaningful action. And finally, as Deputy Chair of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law, I'm very happy to see many members of the community connected, including, of course, our Chair, Professor Christina.
Hello, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to have each of you with us, and we're thrilled to welcome over 3,400 registrants from more than 130 countries around the world. Today's program reflects the depth and the breadth of our community's expertise, from operationalizing the Paris Agreement to advancing climate justice, from deploying innovative legal instruments to securing rights for climate migrants. We'll explore the cutting edge of climate law and governance in service of ambitious climate action.
Hello all, I'm honoured to be joining you for the next few years as the inaugural rapporteur of the Climate Law and Governance Initiative. Guiding the moderators and rapporteurs who will join each of your sessions today, I will be collaborating with you all, especially the chairs, to prepare the report of the day, not just conveying the flavour of the rich and insightful dialogues we will be hearing, but also highlighting new partnerships, projects, and potentially even law and policy reform that are sparked and strengthened throughout the day.
Thanks so much, Laura. And with that, we're delighted to now hand the floor over to the chairs of the 2024 Climate Law and Governance Day. Professor Marie-Claire Cordonier Segger serves as Chair in Sustainable Development Law and Policy at the University of Cambridge, where she's Senior Law Fellow at Lucy Cavendish College. She's also Senior Director of the Center for International Sustainable Development Law, where she serves as Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC COP29 Climate Law and Governance Initiative, and has published over 26 books and over 160 papers in 5 languages, edits a series of volumes on international treaty regimes for sustainable development with Cambridge University Press. As a senior legal advisor to the presidency of the UNFCCC and its Highly Climate Vulnerable Countries Forum, and under her current chair, she's pioneered the Global Democratizing Education for Global Sustainability and Justice program, opening new training and engagement opportunities for over 19,000 current and future law and policy leaders in more than 160 highly climate vulnerable and other countries worldwide. Professor Rashad is founding dean of the School of Law, ADA University in Baku, Azerbaijan, and is a visiting professor of law at the Catholic University of Lille, France. As founding dean, Professor Rashad has transformed the teaching of law in Azerbaijan through the first law degree offered in the English language in the country, enabling several Azerbaijani students to succeed abroad through partnerships with several international universities and consortiums. In addition to empowering and building local legal capacity to advance the just transition, his own areas of research include law and religion, political and legal philosophy, constitutional law, and citizenship and identity in the post-Soviet space. Professor Cordonier Segger and Professor Ibadov, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Advocates Ayman and Maeve as our Masters of Ceremonies. Also, Advocate Lara as our really marvelous inaugural rapporteur of the initiative. And of course, Ananya, Antoinette, and Tejas for your excellent leadership in bringing this entire day together. Warmest of welcomes to Climate Law and Governance Day 2024. In these increasingly troubled times, humanity faces a serious challenges of intensifying conflict, poverty and economic instability, human rights violations, and ecological degradation, the shattering of planetary boundaries, especially due to global climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise internationally, 2024 marking the highest levels ever recorded, and we're not on track to limit warming to 1.5 degrees. Devastating impacts are already occurring across the globe, and over 3.3 billion people are now highly vulnerable to climate change. Billions more are seeking a different, more sustainable development alternative with legitimate, indeed crucial, aspirations for our future. All stakeholders, including governments and international organizations, financial institutions and private practitioners, civil society, the judiciary, and academia, including our world universities, must and can vastly accelerate our efforts right now for the drastic and rapid course correction that is urgently needed. And our international law and policy community, deploying our own tools and tactics, has a crucial role to play. As we all know, law can be a sword or a shield, and our contributions must scale up faster than ever in all countries now. It is in this context that we gather here at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, and all over the world for the Climate Law and Governance Day. Since COP11 in 2005 in Montreal, just after the entry into force of the Kyoto Protocol, to COP21 in 2015 in Paris, Climate Law and Governance Day convenes together the expertise, experience, and innovation needed to strengthen the legal and institutional architecture for climate action and to galvanize the law and policy community. Through our discussions, we will explore and hear about cutting-edge developments, share best law and policy practices, and forge the partnerships needed to accelerate implementation of the Paris Agreement. As always, the Climate Law and Governance Initiative is especially delighted to partner not only with world-leading institutions who will be welcoming you in this opening plenary, but also with our local co-host, actively engaging the law and policy community of our presidency host country, Azerbaijan. And in that spirit, we deeply appreciate the hospitality of ADA University Law School here in Baku. I will now turn to my co-chair, Professor Rashad Ibadov, the Dean of ADA Law, for his words of welcome.
Thank you, Professor Marie-Claire. It's truly an honor to welcome everyone here in Baku. I hope you have been enjoying your days here. I'm here on behalf of ADA Law School, and I believe we're going to have a great conference today. We'll hear great ideas. We'll generate interesting hypotheses. We'll describe and redescribe new questions, new problems, put new questions, relevant questions. We will employ methodologies, and we will try to find answers in this conference. We're also very proud for partnering for this event, and I'm particularly thankful to Professor Marie-Claire, Marcus Kering, and other colleagues from Cambridge Law School. It's really an honor for me to really be part of this event and also learn from you while we've been working together for the last couple of months on this event. I've seen how dedicated you are, a lot of energy, a lot of time you have invested in this event. Thank you so much for that. We're also very happy to host COP 2019 in Azerbaijan. I have to say a few things about Azerbaijan and why it's this event, this COP 29, is particularly important for us. Oil and gas very often recognized as kind of symbols of the country in Azerbaijan, but I have to say that Azerbaijan is an environmental loving nation. We're very much attached to environmental issues, ecological issues, and there are many reasons for that. And one of them is Azerbaijani literature. Nizami is considered the greatest poet of Azerbaijan, who wrote 5 important poems called Khamsa. We studied Khamsa in high school for many years, and Khamsa offers several important messages, but one of the important messages that you get from Khamsa while studying it, it's about ecological upbringing, ecological responsibility for life. And Khamsa is in our spirit. Every Azerbaijani lives with the ideas of Khamsa. So this is one of the reasons I believe why Azerbaijani people are so much attached to environment, nature, and ecology. In a similar pattern, ADA University places environmental issues and questions on the top of its agenda. I believe one of our competencies is actually for developing environmental awareness at ADA University. Finally, I would like to say that ADA Law School, which is pretty young, places environmental law at the center of its education. We offer environmental law as one of the 4 courses, but I believe that with the new opportunities we have gained through our colleagues from Cambridge University, we can now offer more courses and we can maybe expand the horizon of environmental law within the School of Law. This is also a great opportunity to basically introduce ADA University to our colleagues from all over the world. And on this point, I'd like to introduce our Vice-Rector, Fariz Ismailzade. Professor Fariz Ismailzade is Director of the Institute for Development and Diplomacy, Vice-Rector for Government, External and Student Affairs at ADA University. He's also a member of the Parliament, Deputy Chair of the Education and Science Committee. Professor Ismailzade's main areas of expertise include Azerbaijan's foreign policy, Azerbaijan's relations with neighboring countries, critical historical events in the Caspian region, and public diplomacy. Fariz Ismailzade, the floor is yours. And again, thank you so much, and I wish you to have a great conference day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rashad Ibadov. Good morning, dear colleagues. Good morning, dear colleagues from University of Cambridge, as well as from all over the world. I'm very happy to welcome all of you at our joint seminar. And please allow me to pass you special greetings from our rector, Ambassador Hafiz Pashayev. He is well aware of this seminar. He looked at the program and he very much supports our initiative. So best wishes to all the participants. We are very excited about this activity because during COP29, other university was selected as the main academic partner. So we have done more than 50 seminars, symposiums, conferences, and youth simulations throughout 2024. And we continue doing them actually this week. We have full program until the end of COP29. And next year, we will also be involved with this COP30 because we are part of Troika together with UAE and Brazil. Azerbaijan is very honored to host COP29. More than 72,000 delegates from 198 countries are visiting Azerbaijan. 85 heads of states, vice presidents, and prime ministers are part of delegation. And Azerbaijan has positioned itself as a bridge between developed world and developing countries because we have chaired non-aligned movement for 4 years. We know the concerns and the questions and the issues of the developing world. At the same time, we are at the proximity of European Union. We are cooperating with European Union on energy issues. So we believe that we can connect the two parts of the world, so-called global south and the developed world, and we can build bridges and we can find new mechanisms, especially financial mechanisms, to tackle the climate issues, to deal with climate change, climate mitigation and adaptation. And we believe that such seminars, including your participation, will help us a lot on this issue. All the best wishes to participants, and we look forward to see some of you in Baku on our follow-up activity face-to-face. And throughout the day, I wish you fruitful discussions and deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice-Rector, and it has been an honor and a pleasure to collaborate with you and with your colleagues from the law faculty and from across the university, and also to make your brilliant students who have volunteered as rapporteurs and as hosts for the event today, collaborations tomorrow, and especially the legal specialization course that we'll be hosting in person for students and others from across the Caspian region on Sunday in your beautiful law faculty. We are deeply grateful for the hospitality and indeed all of the efforts that we have seen since arriving in Baku. And we wish you and your entire university and indeed the hosts the very best of luck for the second week of the COP29 that lie ahead. Together with our local colleagues, we are now especially pleased to turn to several global leaders of the climate law and governance community. And we are very, very honored that these leaders are with us in order to welcome all of the participants to this day on behalf of our key partner institutions. I'm very, very pleased and honored to introduce them now. We're joined online first by Professor Dr. Patricia Kameri-Mbote, Director of the United Nations Environment Programme Law Division and Laureate of the Climate Law and Governance Global Leadership Award. Now, several years ago, she was one of our inspiring global leaders recognized in the Climate Law and Governance Day. She's a renowned specialist in environmental law at local, national, regional, and international levels, was the founding research director and program director for Africa in the International Environmental Law Research Center for 20 years, and part of the Senior Counsel Bar of Kenya, as well as Dean of the School of Law in the University of Nairobi. She's also a member of the International Council on Environmental Law, so we're very, very deeply honored to be joined by her, first as an opening speaker, and then, of course, as my co-chair in the next panel, the high-level panel on climate compliance on trial. We're also deeply honored to be joined by Advocate Thomas Clark. Tom is General Counsel of the Asian Development Bank, also a laureate of the Climate Law and Governance Global Leadership Award in the General Counsel category, and a renowned advocate specializing in climate finance and investment. He leads legal strategy and engagement on regulatory and policy reforms at ADB, and with over 30 years of experience, he's advised financial services, energy, and infrastructure sectoral reforms across the Americas, Asia Pacific, and Europe. So warmest of welcomes to Tom as well. We're also joined by Tom's colleague and co-recipient of the Global Leadership Award, Advocate Michael Strauss, who's General Counsel of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, as well as a leading voice in international discussions on climate finance. He's a member of the Executive Committee and Crisis Management Team at the EBRD, and I will say that the European Bank, he was extremely active in the days and nights and weeks after the first start of the conflict in Ukraine, and really deeply honored you for that work, Mike. He's also a member of the and a representative of the United States on the board of Asian Development Bank, formerly, and builds on a great deal, a wealth of distinguished experience from his roles in the World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund, among others. So we're very, very pleased to have both Tom and Mike with us today. Last but not least, we have two other colleagues who have joined us as key partners. Professor Christina Voigt really needs no introduction. She is a deeply honored and distinguished colleague and friend for many years in the international climate regime, chair of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law, co-chair of the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee, and of course, a fellow academic professor at the University of Oslo. She's previously served as a legal advisor to the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment, has been a key feature in the development of international climate agreements, along with authoring numerous academic articles, a monograph, several edited book collections. And I should say that Christine and I have just received the final version of a new book that we've been working on for many years together on courage, contributions, and compliance, the Routledge Handbook on Climate Law and Governance. So we will look forward to celebrating with you on that in time to come, Christina, when we are holding the baby in our hands. Yes. And finally, last but not least, of course, Professor Tenia Kyriazi is president of the United Arab Emirates branch of the International Law Association, which was launched during Climate Law and Governance Day last year, as well as the professor and head of Law and Politics at Middlesex University, Dubai, our co-hosts of the Climate Law and Governance Day from last year. She researches at the interface of international human rights law with emerging areas of concern, and it has been an honor and a pleasure to collaborate with her over the years, especially as our co-host last year. So I will turn directly to our first welcoming opening speaker, Professor Kameri-Mbote. Patricia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Marie-Claire, for the introduction. Dear colleagues, dear participants joining us online, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. I would like to thank all the partners for the organization of this important event, as we are today halfway through COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. It is always a pleasure for me to participate in the Climate Law and Governance Days, and this year is no exception. Law and governance remain foundational aspects of climate action and have been at the core of UNEP's work since its establishment in 1972. We no longer see the environmental crisis of climate change, land degradation, species and biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste in silos. They are deeply interconnected and converge with other global crises such as conflict for territory and resources, displacement and deteriorating health, amplifying, accelerating, and synchronizing into a polycrisis. Greenhouse gas emissions are at a new high, and the World Meteorological Organization reported that 2024 is likely to be the warmest year on record. The world is edging closer to exceeding 1.5 degrees centigrade. Even at current temperatures, heat waves, floods, droughts, wildfires, and rapidly intensifying tropical cyclones are raining down misery, particularly on the poorest and most vulnerable. The 2024 UNEP emission gap report calls for no more hot air, please. It argues that current nationally determined contributions put the world on course for warming of 2.6 degrees centigrade, and current policies point to an even worse scenario of 3.1 degrees centigrade. As climate impacts intensify and hit the world's poorest, the Adaptation Gap Report 2024, Calm, Hell, and High Water, finds that nations must dramatically increase climate adaptation efforts. With deadly and damaging climate impacts already here, nations must step up on adaptation, which means stepping up on finance commitment and transitioning away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy. The Adaptation Gap Report shows that it remains technically possible to get on a 1.5 degree pathway with solar, wind, and forest, holding real promise for sweeping and fast emissions. Today, 15th November, an event is being held in the Forest Pavilion on a Model Forest Act initiative, a groundbreaking initiative aiming to develop a comprehensive legal blueprint that will support policymakers, legislators, and other stakeholders. More than development of laws and policies, however, implementation and enforcement are increasingly critical to ensure transformative change. Climate litigation is rising as one additional tool to seek accountability, justice, and protection of human rights. It is expected that international, regional, and national litigation that we will hear about in later panels will influence environmental decision-making around the world, even as they inform domestic legislation. We are also seeing an increase in national legislation that seeks to implement the international obligations of states under the climate regime. And we have countries like Fiji with the Climate Change Act in 2021, the European Union 2021 European Climate Law, and Mauritius Climate Change Act 2020. UNEP is committed to support the development of environmental rule of law to support climate action through its flagship environmental law initiative, the Montevideo Program for the Development and Periodic Review of Environmental Law. We will continue to work with states to enhance their legal preparedness and with other constituencies like academics, judges, parliamentarians to build capacity to better respond to climate change. Tomorrow, 16th November, a high-level official side event will be held in Baku, gathering several chief justices and judges from around the world to reflect on judicial perspectives to the climate challenge. We are today at a crucial point of environmental multilateralism. The Summit for the Future in September 2024 produced a Pact for the Future, which is the most wide-ranging international agreement in years. In it, members have reconfirmed the need to keep global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels and to transition away from fossil fuels. They have also promoted the implementation of multilateral environmental agreements. And this, again, is the year when we have the 3 Rio conventions having their conferences of parties, which is a good time for them to commit to work towards implementation of multilateral environmental agreements. This is the moment of truth on our road to Belém, where COP30 will be held. Every fraction of a degree avoided counts, each dollar counts, and every action will have a significant impact in terms of lives saved, economies protected, damage avoided, biodiversity conserved, and the ability to rapidly bring down any temperature overshoot. The international community needs to remain committed to these goals, particularly recognizing the transformative power of environmental rule of law, working closely together and bringing to the table the most affected persons. I'd like to thank you for your attention and wish you a productive rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Patricia. And it is truly an honor and pleasure to receive you and to be able to depend on the UN Environment Programme's partnership, kindness, loyalty, patience and forbearance with us, as well as your guidance and your inspiration. I will turn now to Advocate Tom Clark, and then Tom, if you can pass directly to Michael. Tom, it's so marvelous to be finally in your region. Over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Marie-Claire. Really, it is wonderful to be here in Baku. A warm hello and greetings to all of you online from Baku. Look, it's an incredible honor for the Asian Development Bank, and we're so honored to count Azerbaijan as one of our developing member countries. It's been a terrific couple of days already and more to come, but it's an honor for me right now to be here to contribute to this year's Climate Law and Governance Day. And I'll tell you why. It's really with deep gratitude to you, all the organizers, especially you, Professor Marie-Claire, and your excellent team, our dear friends at the ADA University, for convening this year's Climate Law and Governance Day and inviting ADB to support this important initiative. Couldn't come at a more important time. And in fact, what I really can't emphasize enough is the importance of initiatives such as this annual Climate Law and Governance Day to really help increase the capacity of the legal sector. Indeed, we lawyers, who many are not traditionally climate experts, but it's imperative to become that. And events such as this and this whole initiative really foster knowledge sharing to contribute to climate action and broader sustainability goals. Just maybe to set the context a little bit, if you step back and look at like last year's G20 independent expert group report, sort of famously called the Triple Agenda, it is awesome and a little bit scary in terms of the expectations that are being set for multilateral development banks. I mean, first and foremost, it concluded that we needed to have about $3 trillion annually, incrementally, beyond what's being done now, of capital coming in to support climate transition, combat climate change, and associated UN SDGs. And of that, an incremental 270 billion is needed annually by the MDB system. It's a very tall order. Frankly, we're nowhere near there yet, but that's what we're marching to. Those are the global expectations. Those are coming from the G20, from our shareholders, and indeed from the entire ecosystem in which we operate. And at the Asian Development Bank, we've been marching very quickly to try to meet those very, very high expectations. We've mainstreamed climate action in all of our operations. We've made commitments to align our sovereign and non-sovereign operations with the Paris Agreement. We've elevated our climate finance ambition to $100 billion from our own resources by 2030. And talking about work for lawyers, we've been engaged in incredibly important and legally intensive efforts. And I know Mike and many of our other MDB colleagues have as well over the last year to reform and update our capital management, our capital adequacy rules in order to unlock an additional $100 billion in our case that we're going to assign to climate finance, both adaptation and mitigation. We've scaled up our impact by catalyzing the private sector, philanthropies, capital market donors, and other sources. Why? Because if you look at those numbers from the Triple Agenda, as I mentioned, as sort of inspiring and a little bit scary as the 270 billion from MDBs are, the additional couple of trillion that are needed, from the broader, private sector, that's where the resource is going to have to come from. So our work isn't just money. It's also about catalyzing other money, particularly from the private sector, which means a lot of upstream work, helping our countries to improve the legal system, to improve transparency, so as to catalyze that absolutely critical private sector finance. Now, with climate change at the heart of ADB's mandate, it has become absolutely imperative for ADB lawyers to enhance our climate literacy and to basically to become bilingual by combining our legal expertise with climate change knowledge to drive climate action. And that's whether we're supporting sovereign operations, private sector operations, transaction advisory services, our treasury and funding activities, and of course, near and dear to my heart, as you'll know, law and policy reform, which in our case is headed by my dear colleague, Christina. That's one of the big reasons that we're here and what we're doing with things like the Forest Forum, I'll talk about in a minute. But it's the whole gamut of our legal activities, and not, by the way, to forget procurement, advising on policies, co-financing, development partnerships, and all the range of activities lawyers are involved in. So early this year, our legal department launched our Legal Aspects of Climate Change program for our lawyers, developed by lawyers and working across teams and disciplines to learn from each other and keep us updated on the latest development to better support our client. And likewise, it's important for lawyers across the globe in the same way, all of you, to continue to collaborate and for us to learn from each other. That's why, this is just the right time to be together here in Baku. This Baku COP29 is called the Finance COP, because of the need that everyone recognizes for significant finance. Indeed, it's billions to trillions that are needed to enable countries to transition to net zero. And the law and lawyers have a huge role, an absolutely fundamental role to play in meeting the growing demand for climate finance. Just as an example, right here the other day at COP29, ADB held a high-level event on the commencement of our innovative financing facility for climate in the Asia Pacific. This is a groundbreaking initiative to mobilize climate finance at scale and to provide needed funding for climate action. And what's innovative about it is that it actually will leverage ADB's lending capacity through guarantee contributions from a number of partners, a number of our member countries, that will unlock the resources for climate change. Basically, it's using a leveraging model of 1 in and 4 to 5 out, so that with IFCAP's current guarantee size, and I think maybe some of you were at the event that we had on Tuesday, it's going to actually create over $11 billion in climate finance for much needed climate projects across Asia and the Pacific. And I don't think you have to guess that, was that a legally intensive effort? It absolutely was, and ADB lawyers had a huge role in that. And that's why training like this, grounding them in climate law and in the broader climate framework, is so important. And lastly, I'd just like to highlight that the law and lawyers have had a huge responsibility to ensure a just climate transition. When you think about it, the law is so critical to providing the legal guardrails and safeguards for people who are most impacted by this transition. Moreover, the law has a critical role to play in increasing the integrity and strengthening the guardrails to help the carbon markets grow. Because if those don't have integrity, if those don't have the credence of the broader system, they're not going to take off. And that's why our law and policy reform team at ADB has been working so much on developing the frameworks for voluntary carbon markets. And these climate finance and investments simply need to be guided by clear legal frameworks that ensure that inclusiveness, accountability, and integrity. Marie-Claire and all of you, in conclusion, I just want to urge the legal community to continue to increase our capacity, knowledge sharing, and collaboration. And in the face of the increasingly complex and challenging development landscape, to take heart, to be together, to find solidarity with each other and learning with each other at events like this. We simply must harness our collective knowledge, resources, networks, and spirit, really, to provide the fair, innovative, and implementable legal solutions we need. So again, so happy, so delighted to be here, and so grateful to you and all the organizers for this tremendous event. Thanks very much, and let me, if I may, pass it over to my dear colleague, the General Counsel of EBRD, Mike Strauss. Mike, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you very much to CLGD for the kind invitation to join you for this opening. And indeed, you always are a tough act to follow, Tom, but I will say that Azerbaijan is also in the EBRD's region, so we have a sweet spot for the moment here at the COP this time. On behalf of the EBRD, I'm absolutely delighted that we once again hosts the Climate Law and Governance Day this year. Let me extend my deepest gratitude to the organizers, particularly you, Marie-Claire, for the superhuman capacity and organization and bringing us all together for this. And let me tip my proverbial hat, since no one wears hats anymore, to Tom, who's been a daily and trusted partner among the general counsels of the MDBs for pushing climate finance to the fore of the work that we do. EBRD is the first IFI that has consistently supported the CLGD for the past many years. This is really a testament to our belief that the CLGD offers a unique opportunity for the legal community to exchange ideas and progress on climate action from a particularly legal perspective. The organizers have always done an exceptional job in bringing together highly experienced professionals to discuss a wide range of issues that are relevant to Paris alignment. And as part of my opening remarks, I'd really like to give you a preview of the sessions that EBRD is co-hosting at the CLGD this year. We're bringing together my esteemed colleagues and dear friends, the general counsels of several multilateral development banks, the ADB, IFC, GCF, and IDB Invest for a high-level plenary session to discuss how IFIs deliver climate finance and mobilize the private sector to drive urgent climate targets. This discussion is designed to showcase the innovative legal instruments that support climate financing. Tom just mentioned a few of them, and highlight how the IFIs leverage policy dialogue and regulatory assistance to create a broader systemic impact. We'll also highlight innovative investment solutions that unlock private sector climate finance at scale. In fact, the MDBs have jointly published a statement at COP29 reaffirming our commitment to increase climate financing significantly, aiming to provide $120 billion annually by 2030 for low and middle income countries. This includes $42 billion for adaptation and to mobilize an additional $65 billion from the private sector. At this COP, The MDBs together have emphasized the importance of establishing a robust new collective quantified goal on climate finance to achieve the Paris Agreement's objectives. And they've introduced a common approach to measuring climate results to enhance transparency and accountability in tracking climate mitigation and adaptation progress. The EBRD specifically announced plans to increase its climate financing efforts dramatically. In 2023, the bank provided over 6.5 billion in green financing, representing 50% of its total investment volume. For every €1 invested in the green economy, the bank mobilized almost €4 from the private sector, which makes that number seem small relative to everything that's been mobilized. There's a lot more that we MDBs do deliver on the climate, and Tom has mentioned some of them, and broader sustainability-related goals. But today, the EBRD, along with IFC, are bringing together a panel of distinguished experts to talk about some of these areas, namely transition planning and transition finance, sustainability reporting, climate governance, and legal reform. We have representatives from the EBRD, IFC, the IFRS's International Sustainability Standards Board, and the law firm Norton Rose Fulbright to address how we can enhance partnerships for people and the planet and leverage the role of MDBs in the private sector for the climate transition in emerging markets. I believe that CLGD is a great opportunity for us all to reflect on how lawyers feature when it comes to climate action. Tom has already mentioned some of this, but if there were any doubt about the role of lawyers in tackling climate change, it's easily dispelled by the simple fact that the global response to climate change is underpinned by a legal document, that is the Paris Agreement. But as Tom was mentioning some of this point, I'd like to go into a little more granular detail before I close on what it means for lawyers joining this event. There are broadly three ways I believe that lawyers support the Paris Agreement implementation. First, lawyers play a critical role in enforcing legal frameworks that transform climate ambition into action. You support the translation of NDCs and long-term strategies into binding laws and regulatory structures, ensuring that climate commitments are backed by enforceable legal provisions. Second, as lawyers, you help guide companies and financial institutions through complex compliance requirements, including emerging global standards like the ISSB, the EU Sustainable Finance Regulations, all of which impact both advanced and emerging markets in an area where EBRD is already very active. And third, lawyers structure financing for climate initiatives and develop legal innovations to support clients, some of which, again, Tom mentioned from ADB's side. But from EBRD's side, for example, our climate-related debt clauses will offer debt deferral options to clients in lower and middle-income countries after extreme climate events, helping them manage loss and damage. So I'm trying to be brief. I will simply say this in closing. The race to meet net zero will reshape legal practice. Let us be very clear about that. There is no time that's better than now for the legal profession to lead, advancing climate-conscious practices in everything we do. I look forward to discussing this important topic with all of you today. Thanks very much.
Thank you so, so much. And you can probably imagine now why it was such an honor and a pleasure to present the Global Leadership Award in the category of General Counsel to both Tom and Mike. They are an absolutely brilliant double act. And it's true, Azerbaijan is at the intersection between both your regions. And it's been such a pleasure to work with you on the organization of this event, as well as many of the other collaborations that we are launching this week and indeed this year together. I'm greatly looking forward to the sessions that we have coming up today, and I know all of our participants are as well. I'm now going to turn directly to Professor Christina Voigt and ask her to pass the floor to Professor Tenia Kyriazi as well. Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Professor Marie-Claire Cordonier Segger. A very warm welcome to the participants of the Global Climate Law and Governance Day 2024, also on behalf of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law, which is always proud and privileged to partner with you, Marie-Claire, but with all the other partners in this very important event. So very warm welcome from the City of Fire here in Azerbaijan, where we all gather for COP29. The annual gathering for the Climate Law and Governance Day is, of course, always a highlight for lawyers working in this field to come together to discuss contemporary issues. But I think it is fair to say that this year, tops the importance compared to previous years. And I'll give you 3 reasons for why I think that this year is one of the really important watershed highlight years for climate law and governance. First, the first reason is that we're moving into a legal super year for the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, as we just heard from Michael Strauss, is a core agreement, but it must work. And for making it work, it needs legal expertise at all levels. We know it works. We know already it works. As the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Executive Officer Simon Steele said at the opening of the COP, he said, we know it works because without it, we would already be on a track of warming of 5 degrees. Of course, it's not there where we need to be. And Dr. Patricia Kameri-Mbote mentioned that we are not on track, but we would even be much more off track without it. But we need to calibrate what is currently being done to be on track with the goals of the Paris Agreement. So the legal super year is because the processes established under the Paris Agreement are really only kicking in motion as we speak. There is a legal obligations of parties to communicate new NDCs in 2025. There is a deadline to it, that's the 10th of February 2025. And these new NDCs, and we already seen 3 or 4 coming in, but there need to be many more to come over the next couple of weeks and months. They need to be, they will reflect each party's highest possible ambition, and they need to progress compared to what is in the current NDCs in order to close that ambition gap that is there, and in order to put forward pathways that are aligned with 1.5 degrees warming. There is also a legal obligation, and I really highlight that because it's sometimes forgotten that these are core legal obligations of all parties to provide their very first biannual transparency report. We have not seen any reporting under the Paris Agreement yet. This is new. This is just kicking in this year. The deadline is the 31st of December, 2024. So far, we've got 9 BTRs, as they're called, but many more will be coming. So all these are core legal obligations with deadlines, and the Paris Agreement Compliance, Implementation and Compliance Committee that you mentioned, Marie-Claire, will of course be checking on whether parties comply with these deadlines. And in that context, please allow me to mention that we have an official side event on the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee today at 1:30 in the United Nations, the UNFCCC official pavilion, and we will be joined by the Executive Secretary, Simon Steele. And with these processes, finally, the Paris machinery is kicking into motion. It took a long time, but we are there now. And these processes have to be safeguarded, they have to be protected, they have to be understood, and they have to be supported by lawyers. They need our attention. The second reason why we have a legal super year is that 2024 is a watershed year for climate cases at international courts. And I know you will be discussing the international courts that are currently involved in climate cases and advisory opinion later this year. But we have a very groundbreaking judgment from the European Court on Human Rights and Klimasenioren against Switzerland, where the court clearly stated that states have a duty under human rights law to adopt effective science-based regulatory measures to reach climate neutrality by 2050, or in other words, to be Paris aligned or 1.5 degrees aligned. And we have an authoritative judgment or statement from the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea that all anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions are pollution of the marine environment, and therefore states have a legal obligation to take measures to prevent, reduce, and control pollution as a matter of due diligence. Both of these courts have referred to the Paris Agreement and have been guided by the legal standards in the Paris Agreement in the interpretation of their respective international treaty. That's important to create harmony and consistency in international law, which we need in order to have effective climate action. And now, of course, we are awaiting the advisory opinions from the Inter-American Court on Human Rights, which should be around the corner. And of course, the pinnacle of it all, the International Court of Justice in The Hague. And we know that the oral hearings start soon on the 2nd of December. They will last for about 2 weeks. We will hear 100 statements from 87 states and 13 international organizations. The IUCN, which I represent as their lead legal counsel, has the privilege to have the very last intervention on Friday, the 13th of December this year. And that will be a feast for lawyers listening and having access to the written statements by all these participants. And finally, the third reason why this is an absolutely crucial moment for environmental and climate lawyers to step forward is that we are facing significant geopolitical, but also biophysical challenges and even instability. We, and Patricia already mentioned that, we are facing the imminent crossing of the 1.5 degree threshold, and lawyers need to be thinking about what does law and governance look like in a world that overshoots 1.5 degrees. And we are facing geopolitical changes in many countries, including the United States. And that brings to the forefront the need for multilateralism, the need for international law, and the need for cooperation more than ever. And that means that we need to put all our efforts into working things out together, collectively, fairly, equitably, but also effectively, both on the international level, but also domestically. And that means, again, a very important role for lawyers. I wish you all a very, very successful day and send you my greetings and my best wishes for this year's Climate Law and Governance Day. And I'm very pleased to move the floor on to Tenia Kyriazi. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Christina. A very warm welcome and good morning from Dubai, the UAE. Professor Marie-Claire, Professor Rashad, thank you for inviting me to contribute to the opening of the Climate Law and Governance Day 2024. It was a great honor and a pleasure to co-host, together with our colleagues from the University of Dubai, the Climate Law and Governance Day 2023 during COP28 in the UAE on the 5th of December last year at Middlesex University, Dubai. We hosted, in a hybrid event, over 1,700 distinguished guests, COP delegates, students and partners, all current and future law and policy leaders. Hosting this event gave us the opportunity to become part of this growing global climate change movement. The Climate Law and Governance Day provides an excellent platform for engagement, for discussion, for debate, and for decision-making on climate law and governance with the aim of advancing the goals of the Paris Agreement and contributing to building a sustainable society. The Climate Law and Governance Day inspires continued commitment to climate action and fosters collaborations among governments, institutions, and individuals who are dedicated to addressing challenges posed by climate change. The Climate Law and Governance Day 2023 was the largest event ever hosted at Middlesex University, Dubai, both in size, but most importantly, in terms of its profound impact to students, staff, and the community. It was inspiring and it was constructive, and it paved the way for a long-standing, solid partnership with the Climate Law and Governance Initiative and with the Center for International Sustainable Development Law and for friendships, especially in education, research, training, and advocacy. We are very grateful to Professor Marie-Claire and her fantastic team for giving us the opportunity to co-host this outstanding event last year. it is truly inspiring to see that this year registrations have surpassed 3,400, as I heard last night, of current and future law and policy leaders from over 113 countries across the world. But don't quote me, because I think that number must have grown already. So on behalf of Middlesex University, Dubai, congratulations to all involved for the organization of this event. We know how much of hard work it takes to get there. We know that you have been working since the aftermath of last year's event for this event, and warmest wishes to all of you for a successful, impactful, inspiring, and engaging Climate Law and Governance Day 2024.
Oh, Tenia, thank you. And thank you also to Professor Christina Voigt. We will be sharing with the entire registration of Climate Law and Governance Day the news of the events you mentioned, as well as the absolutely brilliant sources and programs that Tom and Mike and the reports and Montevideo program that Patricia highlighted as well. Very deepest of thanks for all of your inspiring interventions, and Tenia, especially for mentioning the friendships and the collaboration and the impact of Climate Law and Governance Day. Rashad, warnings. This is the beginning of something big. It is really an honor, and we are very grateful to all of you and your world-leading organizations for your partnership, especially your gracious guidance, support, and engagement in the entire initiative over these years and the years to come. And they are going to be crucial and important years, as all of you have underlined. They are going to be the years where we either change the direction and scale up massively, or see unimaginable consequences, unsurvivable consequences. The stakes have never been higher, and it is with partners